Hey, my dog lovers, stop picking hairs off your jumper and listen up. The National Dog Survey from Dogs Trust is back, and whether you have your own dog or just admire them from afar, we want the full scoop. From the joyful moments that make you laugh to the soggy splashed-filled ones you'd rather not relive. Just 15 minutes today could make a huge difference for the nation's dogs of tomorrow. Join our muddy-trousered community by searching Dogs Trust National Dog Survey.
There's nothing like my American Express Platinum card. I love that I can earn hotel credits when I travel. I can also earn Resi credits, so you know I'm hitting the restaurants everyone's talking about. Plus, with the digital entertainment credit, I'm even more excited to catch my favorite shows. All in all, I can access over $3,500 in annual value with benefits and eligible purchases across travel, entertainment, and more. Learn more at americanexpress.com/explore-platinum. Enrollment requirements, monthly and other limits and terms apply.
Hello and welcome to the Book Club Review. I'm Kate and this is the podcast about book clubs and the books that get people talking. The Women's Prize is fast approaching, with the winner announced in just a few days. But what do you do if you're a podcast host who's excited about the prize but hasn't managed to read all 6 of the shortlisted titles? Well, you call in an expert, and I'm delighted to be joined by someone whose voice will be familiar to many, and that is Amanda Moulson, co-host of the Curious Readers podcast, who has read all 6. She'll be joining me to run through the shortlist, and we'll be trying to pick out which one we think stands the best chance of winning. And if, like me, you're going to struggle to get to them all, which ones should you focus on? Which are the books most likely to delight, surprise, and stay with you long after you've turned the final page? And so listen in as we cover all 6 books, and you'll also find out what Amanda has on her TBR, the books she most loves recommending, and how a busy book podcaster organises her bookshelves. All that coming up here on the Book Club Review. Amanda, welcome. I've had your co-host, Joseph, on the show a couple of times, but this is the first time that you and I have got together to talk books. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Now, listeners to your pod, Curious Readers, will know your reading tastes well, but for anyone hearing you here for the first time, tell us a little bit about your reading life. Taking my cue from your show, I've got some quickfire questions for you because I wanted to make you feel at home. And you and Joseph are very structured in your approach to things. This is how we differ. So, first up, an easy one. Multiple books on the go, or are you a one book at a time girl?
Oh, no one's ever asked me that question. I am a multiple books on the go woman, but I tend to have very distinct genres going on. So I may be reading a physical fiction book and listening to nonfiction, or I've got fiction and nonfiction that I'm reading, but I will always have an audiobook as well. I'd say max 3, but definitely a multiple book girl.
Okay. What is your best place to read?
In summer, I am in my garden. You will find me there. And in winter, I just love my bed. I love a long morning. And in both cases, wherever there is coffee, I would say, is a place I'm happy reading.
Oh, me too. I had the best day yesterday. We'd been away for half term, so it'd been a lot of family time and traveling, and we come home. And it was just this day where the kids were off at school. I had the whole house to myself, and I had a stack of books that I had acquired on this trip. And I took myself up to bed with my coffee and had the nicest morning. It was just the best. And I was just really self-conscious about it. I was like, this is so great the whole time.
Isn't it? I feel that way all the time.
Oh, best place.
Yeah.
Do you have a shelving system for your book collection, or is it freestyle?
Oh, so there is a system. It is based somewhat on aesthetics. So it's alphabetized. That's the only real system to it.
This does not surprise me.
Yeah, I've got to keep the sizes together. So they start over, right? The stacks keep starting over depending on what size.
Wait, so they're alphabetized and they're also organized in size? Yes.
Yeah.
And is there any other way that they're organized? There's already a double organizational system going on.
There is. And it's funny. There will be little pockets where these are memoirs and here are some books of poetry and things like that. But those are fewer and further between. Basically, it's a size alphabetized system.
Brilliant. And then I didn't prep you on this, so you might need a little bit of thinking time, but what's a favorite book that you've talked about on Curious Readers? Could be something that's come up recently or something I often find on the pod, I have recurring books that come up again and again when I need to reach for a recommendation.
Oh, that's true. Whenever anybody asks me for a recommendation, I always go with Sorrow and Bliss, Meg Mason, which I think is just a lovely book for people in many different stages who want something different out of a book. I think it's quite literary. I also think it's quite easy to follow. So that is one that I recommend all the time. I have so many favorite books. Another one that I just love, and I mentioned this on the pod recently, and I forgot about it. I forgot to mention on the pod is My Family and Other Animals by Daryl Durrell.
Oh, yeah.
I just love it. It's so sweet, and it's just such a beautiful tale of Greece and the flora and fauna there, and I adore it.
Yeah, that's a really nice recommendation, actually. It's a great summer book, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And what do you have on the go right now?
Right now, on the go, I have You with the Sad Eyes, which is a memoir by Christina Applegate, which was really recommended. I read about it in a lot of U.S. publications. As you can hear from my voice, I'm a dual citizen, which actually makes the sizing on my bookshelves very tricky because you've got U.S. size books, UK ones. Anyway, I'm reading You with the Sad Eyes by Christina Applegate. I had read a lot of really good reviews of it. And so far, I'm really enjoying it.
That's interesting. I can't think of the name of the person, but Laura was just telling me it's so embarrassing that I forgot because I didn't really know who she was at the time. And it was explained to me. So this is another celebrity. Oh my God, who was it? It was called Open Book by Jessica Simpson.
Oh my God. I didn't know she had a memoir.
According to Laura, it was a nostalgia trip through her 20s and it's deeply fascinating. Anyway, so I'm wondering if Laura knows about the Christina Applegate memoir. Sounds like a
Yeah, I know. I'm also in the spirit of having more than one book on the go at any one time. I'm also reading A Long Game by Elizabeth McCracken, which is about writing and her advice for writers, and I'm really enjoying that.
Do you want to hear about the book that I've got on the go?
I do.
So while other people are leaning into their light summer reading, we on the Book Club Review podcast Patreon are leaning into a 1,200 page tome on the development of transportation networks in New York. And this is The Power Broker by Robert Caro, which is an absolute cult classic and deservedly so. The writing is amazing. Not a word is wasted. It's about Robert Moses, the man who shaped New York into the city that it is today. But it's also a story about power, how power corrupts and what unrestricted power in the hands of one man can do. So it feels incredibly relevant. It's set in the past, modern era, but it feels so contemporary. I keep talking to people about it in relation to current events, or even just my daughter Emmy was campaigning for something like head prefect in school. And I was like, what are the power structures, Emmy? And do you have power? What influence is this going to gain you? Because this whole book gets you thinking in that way. It's so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's been in a way, I'm teeing this up as my excuse for why I haven't read as many of the Women's Prize shortlists as I would like to have, is because I've been quite busy reading The Power Broker by Robert Caro, which I highly, highly recommend.
I would take that recommendation. I do applaud the ambition of your book group, but I see that as a summer read, and here's why. When I was little, fun fact, I used to go to Robert Moses Park to go to the beach.
Is this Jones Beach or there's...
Yeah. Jones Beach is there. You would see shows there and concerts. Yeah, it's just this huge stretch of Long Island. So it is a summer read.
I am just about to come on to the development of that beach, which I think was the first really significant intervention, as I understand it. But Robert Caro being Robert Caro, apparently before you get to learn about the expressway and the development of the kind of waterfront, he takes you back to the geological formation of Long Island.
Right.
And then we get to learn about the communities that then grew up on Long Island and the rich in their mansions on one side and the fishing communities on the other. And then you get to think about the development of the car. And then he takes you to the development of the roads. And finally, you get to the development of the beach. It sounds like a lot, but not a word is wasted. And if anything, what you're wishing as you read it is that it was longer. You just like,
Cool.
I know, it's so amazing. Anyway, that's my summer reading.
Excellent. It may soon be mine. You really sold that.
And if you're interested in joining us for that read along over on Patreon, it's not too late. We're, at time of recording, going into week 2 of our 12-week programme, but you'll get the full schedule to allow you to read along at your own pace, with a summary post from me after each week, including some links to widen your reading and a chat group for you to share your thoughts. So, whether the Power Broker is new to you, or if, like me, you've had it sitting unread on your shelves, come and experience what I think you'll agree is one of the truly great books. Plus, as a Patreon member, you'll have access to extra episodes at the Friends tier. And if you want to come and talk books with me in person, at the end of every month, you can join our book club. Our read for this month is We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabazon Camara, translated from the Spanish by Robin Myers. It was longlisted for this year's Booker International and promises to be a reading experience that is transformative for characters and readers alike. We meet on the last Sunday of the month over Zoom, join to chat or just to listen, with a catch-up recording posted for anyone who couldn't make the live session. I would love to see you there. Speaking of book club picks, one reliable source of excellent book club reads is the Women's Prize. Let's get back to Amanda and dive into this year's shortlist. Okay, to the matter in hand, which is the 2026 Women's Prize shortlist. We are somewhat down to the wire as the ceremony is due to take place in a few days from this recording. Before the announcement, they have a sort of lovely festival day, a Women's Prize Live, which takes place in Bedford Square Gardens. And then the day after, it's the Women's Prize Summer Party, at which they announce the winners of both the fiction and the non-fiction prizes. The non-fiction prize is something I'd love to get into, and perhaps we will do that on another show. But for now, we're concentrating on the fiction. Now, you've been to the ceremony, have you? I have a feeling, did you go last year?
I did go last year. I was very lucky to go last year, and I'm very lucky to be going again this year, I have to say.
So tell us about it, because I have never been. The closest I've come is hearing about it from actually one of the Waterstones Gower Street booksellers who was there, manning, I think, the shop. And she was telling me a bit about it and how much fun it was. But what's it like? Yeah,
firstly, I have to say last year, another reason I was lucky, it's just this beautiful British summer night, like quintessential, perfect weather. That's a gorgeous square. Everything is intense. Everybody who's there has an intelligent thing to say. You're having great conversations. This is very superficial, but beautifully dressed. You're just seeing all of the coolest people in the literary world. And it's very accessible. So everybody who was shortlisted last year, they were very approachable. I was able to have such lovely conversations. I had the longest conversation with Elizabeth Strout that she just had my heart. She was so warm and so engaging and obviously so intelligent. And I felt it was such a perfect night. It actually compelled me to become a patron of the Women's Prize because I was so convinced not only of its importance, but how brilliant it is and how good their choices are when it comes to shortlisting.
Yes, we should say the Women's Prize was established in 1996 to highlight and remedy the imbalance in coverage, respect and reverence given to women writers versus their male peers, creating a platform for exceptional writing by women to shine. The prize is awarded annually to the author of the best full-length novel of the year written in English and published in the UK. The winner receives £30,000, anonymously endowed, and a bronze statuette known as the Bessie. Did you get to see the Bessie?
I saw it from a distance being handed over. Yeah.
I actually had an encounter with Kate Moss recently, who's a very significant founder of the prize, isn't she? I think, did she do it with someone else, but very important figure. She came to my daughter's school to do a recording of the Guilty Feminist podcast, which they had there. And she was talking about her recent book that came out. It's a history of feminism, all these extraordinary women. But she was talking a bit about the prize as well. And I have to say, I found her incredibly inspirational. Yeah. And it's almost like I felt I'm one of the people who's basically grown up under the blanket of feminist work that was done by generations before me. And I somewhat almost like always taken it for granted. I went to a girls' school. I felt discrimination that I might have experienced in my life has not in any way been obvious to me. And do you know what I mean? It's like I feel like it's always not seemed to me like something I need to think all that actively about. It's quite interesting, actually. The Guilty Feminist podcast is addressing that as well. We feel like we don't need to be vocal as feminists, but the reason for that is because actually so much work is being done. Anyway, point is that Kate Moss really made me feel conscious of how much work there is still to be done and that we shouldn't take it for granted. And that recently, obviously, in the past few years, things are regressing to an alarming degree. And so it feels like it's more important than ever now to have things like this prize that really highlight and celebrate women's work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So previous winners have been The Safe Keep, Yael van der Wouden last year, Brotherless Night by Vivi Gerashenathan. In 2023, it was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. In 2022, The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. And in 2021, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I have read all of those except for Brotherless Night. How about you?
Oh, and I have read Brotherless Night, but I haven't read the Ruth Ozeki, which I need to remedy.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I guess the point about that is there's some good solid books there, right? Of the ones I know, there's not a bad book in that bunch. They know how to pick a good novel. This year's shortlisted titles are Flashlight by Susan Choi, Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens, The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, The Mercy Step by Marcia Hutchinson, Kingfisher by Rosie Kelly, and Heart the Lover by Lily King. And the judges are chaired by former Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. Joining her is Mona Archie, a poet, novelist and essayist, Salma L. Wardenay, author, presenter, poet and speaker, Cariad Lloyd, writer, podcaster, actor and comedian, and Annie McManus, author, broadcaster and DJ. So an interesting set of judges. I've read 50% of this shortlist.
That's good.
So I'll be able to comment on some of them, but you've read all of them. So yeah, let's have a little look through them. I'd love to get your take, and then perhaps we can see if we can preempt which one we think might be the winner. So first up on my list, just going in the order they are on the Women's Prize website, is Flashlight by Susan Choi. This is a story set across Japan, North Korea. I'm reaching slightly from memory because this one I read when we did it for the Booker Prize. So it's been a while for me. Can you refresh us? Refresh us on the details.
My memory may be just as hazy because I did it around the same time. So this is a story about a 10-year-old girl, or it starts when this girl is 10 years old, called Louisa, and her father goes missing. When they are out on a walk, she wakes up, she's unconscious, and he is missing. And she has to live the rest of her life putting this mystery together and trying to solve it. And you're absolutely right. It takes place across a number of borders. It does start out in Japan and then to North Korea. Then they immigrate to the US. So there are sections of the book that are told there. And then we see Louisa in adulthood traveling the world just to piece together what happens. But there are a lot of characters in this book, and there's a lot of time spent on their points of view. So Louisa, her mother, Cirque, and then some secondary characters as well.
Flashlight is read by Eunice Wong and published by Vintage Digital. Here's a clip.
Apparently, her mother would have liked for Louisa to ask for a story or a kiss, as if Louisa were still 5 years old. Her mother never expressed this desire, but it was nakedly clear. Such naked, wanting to be wanted made Louisa's mother even more repellent. The door would click into its frame heavily. It was that kind of American door that Louisa had almost forgotten existed in the year she had lived someplace else. A door meant for closing. Louisa would lie in the dark, her unsparing mind tracking her mother's wheelchair down the hall and imagining hidden trapdoors hinging open beneath it. Meanwhile, the dark slid itself onto her chest like a snake, organizing its weight into neatly stacked coils that might go on forever and bury her, crush her, if she didn't leap out of bed just in time and, with deft skill, reopen the door. Louisa was a master at handling the knob. She wasn't clumsy like her mother or thoughtless like her aunt. No sound escaped as the light was let back in, the darkness destroyed. Back to bed, to gaze up at the stripe.
So my memory of this was how brilliant I thought the storytelling was. I was incredibly invested in all of these characters, and there's a lot happening as well. It's quite eventful. There's mysteries to be solved and different locations, and one part taking place in North Korea. And I hadn't read anything by Susan Choi before, and I was impressed by how well she handles the narrative, the excellence of the prose. And it's a complicated subject that I thought she really honoured. North Korea, anyone who's read Nothing to Envy, the amazing non-fiction book by Barbara Demick, which I read years ago when it came out, but It's impossible to take North Korea lightly after you've read that book. And that's an extraordinary book about the only way of knowing what goes on in North Korea is to talk to people who've basically escaped. And that's what she did. She tracked down people who had left North Korea, escaped from North Korea, and she listened to their stories. And it's so moving. It's so heartbreaking. It makes you so angry at the awful things that went on there. And so as a result, any stories that are to do with that, I'm always slightly anxious that it honors these stories and tells them well. And I thought this really did. What was your take on it?
I agree that it is a complex story, and I do think she tells it well, and she piqued my curiosity to learn more. So I will file that book that you just discussed and probably look to it later. My only quarrel with this book, and it was a big one for me, is I didn't find any of the characters likable.
That's what Laura said.
Yeah.
And I was like, but Laura, they've been through so much trauma. And she was like, yeah, but they weren't likable before they went through any trauma. Like at no point were they likable.
And that's what because I kept trying to retrofit it and think, this is well written. It's a good story. You have to find something to like about these characters. But I couldn't. I even joked. I was like, when I first started reading it, Louisa was such a horrible child that I was like, this book is birth control. Yeah, but it is really very interestingly woven together. Yeah. And it is really brilliant, complex storytelling. Joseph and I do joke because we received it and have been a bit more critical than a lot of other people that should it win, we have promised each other that we will go back and do a reread and then do an episode about it.
So read Nothing to Envy by Barbara Demick first.
Yeah.
And then read. It was my second favourite to win.
Okay.
This year, incredibly unusually, I did actually have an instinct about flesh, and that was the one I tipped to win. But this was the one, if you'd asked me, it was the one where I just thought there was a lot to it, and I just thought she did it really well. But also for me, I found it an enjoyable read. I think the thing that it's often the thing that gets me, but if the author can engage my empathy for these characters, and I agree, they're not particularly lovable, any of them, but that for me can transcend that because I'm constantly almost, I suppose, looking at their humanity rather than thinking about them as people I get on with.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that. I thought she did a good job. The judges said it's an extraordinary book that constantly disrupts your expectations and it wears its dark history so lightly. So, yeah, all right. Next up is Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens.
This one was a real surprise to me. This is a book about Mississippi. I have heard Addie E. Kitchens talk about Mississippi and says that she finds it both beautiful and ugly. And I think both of those elements of that state are captured very beautifully in this book. It follows two women. One is called Priscilla, and she is the wife of a very prominent reverend in town and also a leader of commerce. So he's not only at this church, but he's also quite a prominent and public businessman. And then they have a few children, but they have one exemplary child that they have nicknamed Wonder Boy because he is amazing at everything. He's a musician, he's a gifted athlete, and we get the sense that he is just about to be recruited and get the scholarship and that he's going to have this very long and brilliant life ahead of him. And it is also told from the point of view of Wonder Boy's girlfriend, who's called Diamond. And what we soon learn is that there is a lot of misogyny within this family. There are a lot of secrets within this town. Sometimes the women are complicit. Sometimes they are protecting these men, and scales are falling from their eyes as we turn every page in this book. And I really liked it.
Dominion is narrated by a cast including Andrea Giles and published by Macmillan Audio. Here's a clip.
The duration of Sunday devotional depended on whether or not the Holy Spirit drove Rev into falsetto. As he walked from behind the pulpit to stand between the enormous sprays of magnolia on either side of the altar, I could tell he was headed there. "Who is?" He croaked down deep and then slid an octave up. Who is worthy? Rev favored a low bass in his arrangements for contrast and fiddled with every aspect of musicianship. Of course, the sanctuary had been constructed for acoustic excellence. The altar, bandstand, and pulpit lay in the valley with the pews rising on an incline, so that his honey voice floated up to make me shiver. Witnessing him in his element dampened my 25 years of fury at Melvistine Evans's beastly self for encouraging me to sit down out of the sanctuary choir when she complained I couldn't get the precision rock right because of my limp. Anyway, Rev sang the first 2 lines, and Melvistine's hungry eyes were edifying him, and I thought proudly, despite our problems, that's my man.
This is one, I own a copy of it, and very frustratingly, I did not have time to read it. But what I did was, I knew we were going to be having this chat, and that I had basically one chance to read one of them, which I failed at. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, listeners. I failed.
There's still time.
I blame Robert Caro. But I read basically a bit of each of the other 3. And this is the one that the tone of it really hooked me in. And from the very first page, I was really intrigued. So yeah, this is the one that I have waiting for me.
Do you know what was interesting to me is when I first read it, it opens up, and because it's set in this religious family, there's a lot of scripture being quoted, and I thought, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm in the mood for this. But very quickly, all that does is to show the hypocrisy of the faith-abiding men in this family and in this community, and it becomes very suspenseful very quickly, and I just really enjoyed it. I like her voice is very fresh.
You're selling it to me. And she is from Mississippi, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And which I always think when people write about what they know, it does give it this extra little frisson. Yeah. Okay, intriguing. The judges praise the strength of voice in the female characters, the craft of the plotting, and mostly the deft and very chilling way in which the book explores sexual assault and power dynamics in a patriarchy, which all sounds very women's prize. Okay, and then we're coming on to The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, which is another one that I have read. I read this one because I was picking up on the buzz. It was this thing about your word of mouth. Everyone's talking about this book. It was on the New York Times bestseller list. I think I watched Anne Patchett praising it on her Friday reads thing that she does, all of which was sufficient to nudge me to think, what is this epistolary novel? I must give it a go. And so I got my husband, who was in America, actually, to bring me back a copy. So I have the lovely US edition, which I think is much nicer cover than the UK edition. It's an epistolary novel. It's told in letters, and it's an older woman, Sybil, who is writing to various people in her life. She lives alone, and there's a sense in which these letters are a kind of important means of communication, but they're also a little bit of a way of keeping people at a distance. And you learn about her children who live a long way away. Her daughter lives abroad. And you also learn about her previous career, because she's relatively elderly now.
She's about 70. I think it's probably spans 70 to 80 years old.
That sounds about right. And we learn about her previous career as a lawyer and as the clerk to a particular judge. And there is a case that she was involved in that is coming back now to haunt her, a decision that was made where it was felt a person who was wrongly convicted. And this is now coming back to hold her to account. So there's almost a tiny little bit of a thriller plot going on underneath. And then the other source of tension is that she is not entirely well. She is suffering these blackouts. Her body is failing her in some ways. And so there's a lot of anxiety and concern about that. The Correspondent is narrated by a cast including Maggie Meg Reed and 13 more, and published by Random House Audio. Here's a clip.
Felix, my dear brother, thank you for the birthday card, the fountain pen, and the book, which I started the day it arrived, Thursday, and finished today. It was exactly as you described, unlikely and electric, inventive, and right up my alley. 73 feels the same as 72, for what it's worth. Arthritis, constipation, and trouble sleeping. And I've decided to stop dyeing my hair. I don't care much for my birthday, as you know, though it's always nice of you to acknowledge it. Trudy and Millie, of course, came for appetizers and cards. The children both contacted me. Bruce had a strawberry tart delivered from a bakery. He'll be up next weekend to clean out my gutters anyway. And it was awful, so I threw it out. Probably cost him a fortune. Fiona called from London. She said she won't come home again until Christmas because work is keeping her jumping, and now she is designing something in Sydney, for heaven's sake, so she'll spend a month in Australia. She assured me Walt doesn't mind how often she is gone, but I'll tell you, I don't know how their marriage will make it. She'll certainly never be able to have children at this point. They're not even trying. At least she hasn't told me if they are. When I bring it up, she chastises me. Theodore Lubeck down the street brought me cut roses from his bushes, as he does every year, which is good of him, even if he is a renegade from the lawless fringe of the American West. How is France? How is Stuart? What are you writing?
This book did really surprise me. I had thought I was going to be going in for this sort of warm, cozy, almost maybe romantic comedy. And what really took me back in a way was actually just how dark this book is at the beginning. What did you think?
Yeah, I would say that those elements surprised me as well. It does have this overall cozy feel. There is something about the way the story is told and the engaging voice of Sybil herself and even the letters that she writes. But even when we see her reaching out and writing letters to other famous people, so for example, she will write anybody who writes a book that she enjoys. She writes Anne Patchett herself, Larry McMurtry, and Joan Didion. She is connecting with these people on a very deep level about some of the traumas that she has felt in her life. And she also has a big trauma that is revealed through the course of the novel, which is very tragic and very dark. So there are these very serious elements to it, but the overall feeling is very uplifting. And that's quite a fine balance to pull off.
Yeah, it's definitely an upward arc, isn't it? So those letters from the authors, indeed a correspondence, right? There's a back and forth with Joan Didion. It's tricky. Like for readers, you're immediately like, would Joan Didion write this? Would Anne Patchett? You're really like, especially if you've read their work. I was quite convinced by Larry McMurtry.
Me too.
That felt to me like I could imagine him writing that. I was less convinced by Joan Didion. And I just thought the inclusion of Anne Patchett was incredibly strategic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? I don't begrudge her because it was a neat idea. And actually, I think it does work. I think as a reader, you might almost take it with a pinch of salt. But nonetheless, I was happy to go with it and I admired it as a device. I thought it was really nice. And actually, what it leaves you with, in general, is a desire to write a letter to anyone. But it also makes you think, oh, maybe I'll write to that author that I really admire. Why not?
Oh, exactly. Do you know, I learned a fun fact. I was at Hay Festival and somebody was talking about the Correspondent, and they said in the US, the United States Post Office is seeing an upsurge in letter writing, and they are calling it the Sybil effect because this book has been so popular. And it does make you want to put pen to paper and start writing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's that. I think that's the slight disconnect is as a novel, it was okay. Objectively, I think there are places where you could say, yeah, that's not really quite good enough. That doesn't really quite work. There were moments where I was pulled out a bit from the text. But the effect of it, which is undeniable, is, as you say, this lovely warm feeling about the power of correspondence, about taking moments to sit down and compose your thoughts and put something out into the world that you're going to be sending to someone else that isn't an email. It's not something temporary. There's something about that and the meaningfulness of that as an activity. And then the sense of the people reading it at the other end is just really powerful. And I love that this captures that. And so for that, it didn't quite matter that maybe I didn't think it was like Robert Cary level prose because there was something in it that is real. And that, I think, is the thing that people are really responding to. And I think the thing that people love in it. I'm sorry if you really love The Correspondent and you feel like I'm being mean about it. I'm just being honest. Because when I read it, it hadn't been nominated for prizes. I knew there was a bit of a buzz about it. But this is like 8 months ago. It certainly didn't have the cherished position in the culture that I think it's now come to have. Yeah. And I was slightly underwhelmed. But I also thought, oh, yeah, there's something really lovely about this. And so both those thoughts were what I came away with.
Sure.
Be very interesting to see how it does.
I am too, because it is so popular, right? So that's what keeps playing on my mind. I do think that the craft of it is very interesting. She is able to build the story and the plot through that correspondence and through every letter and everybody she writes to. I did find that very interesting. And then how clear that story did emerge from all of those various letters. So I think that is very admirable about it.
And I also think it'd be a great book club read because it is one of those ones where it's not so perfect. What can you say about it apart from this is amazing? But also there's just so much in it that you could pull out and expand on. I think it would be a really good one. Okay, we must come on to The Mercy Step by Marcia Hutchinson.
Yes.
Tell us about this one.
So, confession, I have read all of the books on the shortlist, but I'm not yet finished with The Mercy Step. It was the last one that I picked up, and I am in the final third of it. I am really enjoying it. This is told through a child's point of view. So the narrator, the main character, is Mercy, and it is named after the step that she sits on with her dolly as she watches the world go past. She is a child of the Windrush generation. She has many brothers and sisters. She has an abusive father. She absolutely adores her mother. And through the course of the book, they need to get out of harm's way as it relates to the father. She has such an indomitable little spirit. She's so bright. She's so talented in so many ways. She's very charming. There's a precarity to the book, but because she is actually just so funny and so witty, you don't feel the heft of it, but major things happen and unfold. And there are times where you're going along just happily living in her world, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, this violent, terrible thing has happened.
The Mercy Step is narrated by Marcia Hutchinson herself and published by Recorded Books. Here's a clip.
Still winter. Snow piling ever higher. Ploughs heave, push and struggle against it. Radio cackles with news about shutdowns and blackouts. Cars are buried in drifts. Occasional footsteps crunch, but mostly no one goes anywhere. It's light, even at night, from the reflections bouncing off the crystalline snow. The bedroom is old and cold, and the air is thick with paraffin and cigarette smoke. Not ideal for a sickly baby. It's deathly quiet outside and also inside Mercy's chest. She makes a noise. Mummy smiles at her. But Mercy's drowning, not gurgling. Mummy looks closer at her watery eyes. Papa Jesus, sick picnic. Mummy rubs her chest with bay rum, but it doesn't help. Mercy won't take the breast. She's barely breathing. The skin on the inside of her lips is turning blue. Arms and legs all floppy. Quick time, Mummy wraps Mercy up in towels, herself in a woolen coat, hat, scarf and boots, and takes her to the hospital, Bradford Royal Infirmary. The green and white bus is struggling, skidding and sliding up Toller Lane, churning up slush. It can't manage the hill. Mummy has to get off and walk through the undulating snow to Duckworth Lane to get a second bus to the hospital. She keeps patting Mercy, singing to her and praying. Not my will but thine. Jesus, take the case. Have mercy. Keep her breathing, Papa Jesus.
I think it's really interesting, and I'll tell you that whole gift, and I know this is a very often quoted thing in writing, but of showing, not telling, really comes through with a child narrator. So there are some very brilliant passages where you just see people's reactions in real time, and it really hits home exactly what the effect of the news she's imparting has had. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, this is another one where it's a completely new author to me. Judges said, Mercy is a truly unique character, and I loved how Hutchinson has captured a beautiful and tender portrait of what it takes to leave where you've come from and forge your own future.
Yeah, it really is interesting. And the other thing that you said is not only is this new to us, but it's from a small press as well.
Yeah, looking it up, it's Cassava Republic Press, founded in Abuja, Nigeria, 2006, with the aim of bringing high-quality fiction and non-fiction for adults and children to a global audience. We have offices in Abuja and London. Our mission is to change the way we all think about writing from Africa and her diaspora, whether set in filthy yet sexy megacities, such as Lagos or Kinshasa, in little-known communities outside of Bahia, in the recent past, or indeed the near future. And because literature is not merely a mirror, but a window to many worlds, we believe in its radical power to confront injustice and help reimagine more just, capacious futures. We do not only want stories that reflect the world as we know it, but interrogate it in the process of creating new possibilities. From that, we go to Kingfisher by Rosie Kelly.
Kingfisher is the story of obsessive love. And what's interesting about this as a Women's Prize nominee is that Rosie Kelly is writing as a gay man who is in a relationship with a partner with whom he feels very safe. And this partner is very successful in business and very wealthy, and he has a really lovely life. But suddenly, in his academic position, he is working with a very famous poet and essayist, and he falls in love with her, and he embarks on an affair with a woman. And in that time, she has a recurrence of her cancer, and then he finds himself in a caregiving role just at the time that his own relationship is dissolving.
The audiobook of Kingfisher is narrated by Dan Bottomley and published by W.F. Halves. Here's a clip. And listeners, I know you are no prudes, but just to warn you about the slightly X-rated language in this one.
I can pinpoint almost the second when I realised I wanted to fuck her. It wasn't the first time I saw her in the hallways of the university, nor was it when I first saw her read and watched her face move from awkwardness to elation. It was a more happenstance occasion than that. We'd tripped over one another while trying to buy coffee, me drifting, as usual, her clearly on the way to somewhere. But she stopped, as I did, awkwardly holding her coat and bag and some food shopping. It seemed rude not to invite her to sit with me, especially with the sun shining, as it was that moment. We perched on a recently vacated bench by the river. The ducks were fighting over crusts thrown by a small child and his mother. It was spring, so they were filled with its verve and aggression, trying to drown one another, mallards chasing females absent-mindedly, flapping and splashing. An elderly cocker spaniel waded nearby, paying them no mind. "Ducks are evil," I said, as I rolled a cigarette. "The world must be very black and white for you," she said. It struck me as an odd thing to say, especially in England, where everything is grey. But it was then that I realised I wanted to be inside her, to push her down, to render her imperious intelligence stupid with the weight of my body, with my younger, harder form. I could tell, of course, that she wouldn't accept being dominated. But it was a pleasant thought. She smelled like toast and marmalade, like wet leather. Yes, I wanted to fuck her. And I don't want to fuck women very often.
There is a wonderful secondary character in this called Jessica, who is his best friend, and she is just so loving and so wonderful and also very glamorous and quite idiosyncratic, and I really enjoyed her character the most.
It feels like a very interesting inclusion on the list to me. It feels like it's slightly pushing the envelope for the women's prize, but in a way that seems to me like a good one.
I agree. I think it is an interesting pick. And the language in it is absolutely beautiful. I should say that there are certain passages that I just think are ravishing. I was not as convinced, and I hope I'm not being reductive about men when I say this, but I just found that the voice was a little bit too in touch with its own emotions to be a man.
Impossible to imagine.
Yeah. No, yeah, I thought it was a very interesting pick. I'm curious to see how it fares, but I don't suspect it's the winner.
For the judges, it stood out for its original take on power dynamics and character. And now we come on to Heart the Lover by Lily King. Let's just start with the clip from the audiobook, which is narrated by Rebecca Lohman and published by Simon & Schuster Audio.
We meet at the student union. He's already bought my ticket. They've set up rows of metal chairs and a screen on a stand. We sit and wait for the lights to go out. My roommate, Carson, passes us with her boyfriend, Bud, a Green Beret who drives up from Fort Bragg every chance he gets. They're arguing as they sidestep to empty seats 3 rows ahead of us and then, once settled, start groping each other. The movie starts. It is long and brutal. I have to look down into my lap for half of it. Sam sits like a stranger beside me. Finally, they sing God Bless America at the dinner table after Christopher Walken's funeral. The frame freezes, and it is over. Sam gets up as soon as the credits roll, and I follow him out of the student union. We head down a campus path that isn't in the direction of my room on Pye Street or toward town, where I thought we might get a drink. He points out his dorm from freshman year, and I point out mine the next quad over. The movie has made these buildings, these quads, these years of our lives seem unbearably naive. I want to say something about it, but that feels naive too. Instead, I start to say I have to get up early, and he asks if I'd like to get a beer. We walk toward the bars, but he veers onto a side street, then through the gate of a white fence and up a stepping stone path to a front door lit by an overhead light. Where are we? My house. I can tell he wanted to show it to me, knew it would be a draw. It is. He turns the knob, the house is unlocked, and holds the door open for me. I step into a small vestibule with steep stairs off to the left. To the right is a little table with a lamp and a pad of paper with a pen on top. Through an open door is a living room painted navy blue with a striped couch and a wall of books. I remark on the number of books. That's just the overspill, he says.
I read this one last summer. I absolutely adored it. But I have found in conversations with people that I think it's quite a Marmite book. And I think that's very understandable. It's a book very much of two halves. If listeners have read Lily King's previous book, Writers and Lovers, which joyously and entertainingly tells the story of this young woman, Casey, and her almost like adventures and misadventures, and it's sort of coming of age story, isn't it? And she's working as a waitress and she's studying, and it's very set in the literary world, and it's about writing and all of those things. And all of it was just such a delight. And you very much felt like there was a lot of Lily King, the author, infused into that character, which made it all especially delicious, I think. Now, this feels almost like a sequel. The character has a different name, right? It's Jordan, but it feels very much like the same type of character. But this time, we're now meeting Jordan when she's older, but then she's looking back to her college years and her experiences studying English and two super bright students that she comes to know. One of them, they become boyfriend and girlfriend, so they have quite passionate romance, and yet he's not quite committing. He's not quite going in all the way. He's withholding something from her. And so there's a little bit of mystery about what's going on there. And then the other person in the triangle comes to the fore and they begin a relationship. I hope I'm not spoiling it all too much, but I feel like this is all important to know for the second half, because you get very invested in these relationships and these characters, which are so vivid and just beautifully come to life off the page. And then you get the second half, which is now coming back to Jordan when she's older. And these characters come back into her life. And in fact, they have not been in touch these many years, but they're still very important to one another. And one of them is ill, very ill. And so it then becomes a story about illness and mortality, really. And it's hard because it's pretty difficult to read because you fall in love with these characters a bit in the first half. And now to see them going through something so sad, it's difficult to read. But for me, it worked so brilliantly because I just felt like she had so earned the second half with the first half. As a reader, I was totally invested. I was totally involved. I cared so much about these characters. I wanted to know, and I wanted to be with them all the way through the difficult stuff that happens in the second half. And it was one of those books where it's hard to read about these things, but on the other hand, these are the really profound, meaningful ideas to almost carry with us in terms of the brevity of the time that we have on this earth. And we don't know how long we're going to get. Oliver Burkeman taught us that with his 4,000 weeks. Great if you get that, but you might not. It's got those kinds of messages in it. And I thought also it still had a lot of beauty and tenderness and humor. And it's such an emotionally rich novel. And yeah, I loved it. There you are. I'll just come out and say it. How about you?
I loved it. I am definitely. It's funny, when I did learn it was a Marmite book, I thought, oh God, I love it so much. I can't even see how it could be a Marmite book. I adored that experience and I ripped through it. That is one I would love to read again because it was such an easy reader and it's not that big of a book actually either. And her prose just washes over you. It's very fluid. And I think if I went back, I'd probably discover more and more that I missed. It's like a funny movie when you rewatch a comedy and then you're like, oh, there's 40% of the jokes I missed laughing at the first set.
Yeah. It's a book very much you might read in 1 or 2 sittings. It's really going to pull you in. And I think one of the issues with it actually is the way it's been marketed. And it has a very sort of romantic comedy, feel-good kind of a cover, like the nice bright colors and what is it, like the 2 hands on the English edition. And I think a lot of people may have very good reasons why they would find something like this particularly difficult to read. And you don't know unless you've listened to me telling you all about it already, but you're not going to know all that stuff is coming. And there's another really significant plotline about the narrator's young son, who also is very ill. And I think you might be a bit taken aback given the contrast between the first half and the second half. So I think that's just why I do like to talk about it, because I want people to experience it because it's such a great novel. And It's a novel that really takes you somewhere and it teaches you something and it feels really meaningful, as well as being a totally pleasurable read. That's the genius of it. But equally, I think it's good to know a little bit what you're going into before you pick it up. And if you don't want if you feel like you're not quite up for what you're going to encounter in the second half, read Writers and Lovers, because for me, yeah, I think I would say this is a better book for lots of reasons. But Writers and Lovers is an absolute joy of a read. It's like the first half of Heart the Lover. Heart the Lover refers to a card game that is explained in quite a lot of detail. To the point where you're like, should I try and play Heart the Lover? You feel like you could maybe figure it out, but I actually never followed through. I always meant to look it up and see if it was like a thing or if it's just a thing that Lily King has invented.
Yeah, I certainly have never played it.
And the last word going to the judges, who said, it's beautifully rendered with an emotionally powerful ending that will stay with you. So, Amanda, the big question of the 6, what do you reckon?
What I would love to win is Heart the Lover. What I think will win is Flashlight.
Really?
I do. Yeah. I think the Correspondent, in my head, that looms large as well. I want to say, I think this is a brilliant shortlist. I think it's very diverse. I think the selections are so interesting. And I really mean that genuinely. I know interesting is one of those words people can use for filler. It's a very easy word to throw around, but I
Don't say that. I say it all the time.
I do too.
I think I've said it about 28 times in this one conversation. Interesting.
Interesting. But I just think it genuinely is. I think these are very different picks. We've got a lot of debuts. We do have the inclusion of the smaller press, a lot of age ranges, and I think anything could happen, but I suspect Flashlight might take it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting. We'll see if you're right. Obviously, I have no way of knowing. I feel like the ones I've read are almost the big books as well. And I just wonder whether the Women's Prize, they might feel they want to showcase something that maybe hasn't got so much marketing and acclaim and prestige, which would be in keeping with their ethos. Yeah. You never can tell. But one thing we do know is that they generally do pick a brilliant read. I'm much less, combative about the Women's Prize choices than I am about the Booker, where I always feel like it's a fair game. What? That one?
That's so true.
With the Women's Prize, I'm like, yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah. That's really true. Observed.
It has been a great delight to talk to you about all of these, and we will see. We haven't got long to wait. I wonder if you're willing, we might even do a little follow-up, which I can add to this episode, and we'll get to hear your gossip from the party and what it was like being there when the winner was announced. But for now, Amanda, thank you so much for joining me. This has been great.
Thank you. I have loved this. Thank you so much.
That's nearly it for this episode. You'll find all the books we mentioned listed in the show notes. Next up is the long-promised book club episode on Vigil by George Saunders, featuring the brilliant Jenny and Sarah from the Bookcast Club, which through no fault of its own keeps getting knocked aside by prize episodes. But I'm now focused like a laser, and that will be up next. Don't forget to check out the Patreon for ad-free episodes, extra shows, and the pod's monthly book club. I'm just about to open the suggestions box for our July, August and September reads, so it's a great time to join and you can have a say in what we read next. There's such a brilliant community of readers there, I'd love for you to meet them. And on the back burner, we're also working our way through Robert Caro's extraordinary book on Robert Moses, The Power Broker. If you're not able to invest in a paid subscription at this time, you can still sign up as a free member, where you'll get my weekly reading diaries and monthly reading wrap-ups sent to your inbox. There's even an extra episode or two in the archive for you. Find out more on patreon.com/The Book Club Review. As for me, I've had a couple of books on the go this month that have had me thinking about feminism and women's writing. In A Bookshop of One's Own, Jane Chumley recounts the history of the Silver Moon, the iconic feminist bookshop she ran with her co-founders for nearly 20 years on London's Charing Cross Road. It's an inspirational read about the challenges of establishing a space to champion women writers against a backdrop of misogyny and homophobia. I've also been reading Alison Bechdel's collection of her comic strip, Dykes to Watch Out For, a wittily illustrated soap opera of the lives, loves and politics of a cast of characters, most of them lesbian, living in a mid-sized American city. Bechdel herself describes the strip as half op-ed column and half endless serialised Victorian novel, and much of the action takes place around feminist bookshop Mad Women Books. I still haven't quite managed to organise my thoughts about feminism, but thanks to my reading, my mind is expanding exponentially. Standouts for me this past month were Daniel Kelman's brilliant novel, The Director, and I also had a brilliant time with Nick Hornby's book, The Complete Polysyllabic Spree, a collection of his Believer magazine columns about reading. My other standout was our book club read, This Is Where the Serpent Lives, by Danielle Wenedine, which is a beautifully written and powerfully compelling story about the intertwined lives of a cast of characters from different social classes in Pakistan. It's a really remarkable book. I recommend it. How about you? What have you been enjoying? Drop me a line at thebookclubreview@gmail.com or find me on Instagram @bookclubreviewpodcast and let me know. But for now, until next time, I wish you happy book clubbing.